few little activities, but they're not on Meetup. But I just, email out that I'm going to go hiking or kayaking or whatever, and it's all on the Google group, and so it just can be spontaneous.
And that's an email format, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I use that quite a bit. Mike Banks, Mr. Mike Banks, sitting over here, had said that he wanted to say something about activities, and we bowled right over him, so I'm going to back up for that.
Thank you, sir. November 4th through 6th, we're going to have an autumn rendezvous. Basically, it used to be when the alumni and staff from the spring backpacking course would get together and tell lies about what they did that summer. But it's just a relaxed hiking in about 2 miles from the trailhead at Nordhaus Dunes, and temperatures will exist, and it's been up in the 70s, it's been down in the 50s, but generally the weather's cooperative.
And are you going to put that on Meetup?
No.
Okay, are you going to put that out on Google Groups?
Yes.
Or are you just going to ask some
And
people?
I do have some maps, and yeah, we'll probably put it on the Google, okay?
Okay, on the Google.
Hey, Google.
Okay.
Okay, but it is November 4th through 6th, that's Friday through Sunday. It is not kid-friendly, it's not pet-friendly. I've been told it's not adult-friendly, but it is a good time, and it's just nice that you got plenty of trails to hike on Saturday, and beautiful beach that goes on for miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will have programs. Now, we're going to have Ken Lemieux tonight. In October, we have Ann. Would you like to say anything about your talk, or just that we're going to talk about hiking in Peru? Ann? Somebody?
That's not her.
Is that Ann?
No.
Then I call her the wrong name. I am embarrassed. I am all red.
Because you sure.
Yes. But Ann will be talking about hiking in Peru. In November, we got Jim doing a talk about a trip to New Zealand. December, we are currently working on what we are going to do. So I will take a survey right now. In the past, we've had winter parties, seasonal parties, holiday parties, however you want to call it. And I sent out a note and had 7 responses out of all of Solar. Since you're all here, is anybody interested in some type of winter party?
Wait, you don't want me to vote again, right?
If you if you voted already, put your hand down.
So it's December 2nd, Friday
1, 2, 3,
night.
4. Wait, I gotta count. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20.
We're talking about December 2nd, Friday night, which has been the traditional night before COVID of doing this activity. And then we have done outdoor camp, fire parties.
Yeah.
But we would like to resume our regular activity.
Yeah, we are going to discuss what form this is going to take, whether it will be here, maybe at another venue, or maybe outside. That will, I was hoping for overwhelming want and desire to come here and do it in this place, but we'll have a discussion on that. Thank you very much. And then in January,
Did anybody vote no this time?
we are not doing those because they're just apathetic. They just don't care. I had one person tell me that they would love to come but can't, so I'm counting their vote but not their participation. Everybody who didn't raise their hand, 0
Or
participation.
we already voted.
Oh,
Right, if you've already voted, yes, I'm counting. This vote counting, were they real votes?
Keep going.
Oh, okay. In January, we're going to have a speaker. I did not write his name down, but he he and his daughter have been here before and talked about a east to west, coast to coast trip on big wheel bikes. Large wheel in the front, small in the back, and away they go. But this trip, they're going from Sault Ste. Marie down to Key West. And that will be in January. And in February, I have a tentative speaker coming that's going to talk about the volunteer work he does at Fort Wayne, a little history on Fort Wayne, and how he gets people motivated to also work there. He's also a Boy Scout leader, so I think he's going to bring some of that in as well. And I believe that's it for our possible programs as far as February. I do not know what else we have, since I don't do this all the time. Communications. Public relations. Bob, do you have anything?
Nothing new, you covered it.
Okay. Bob is holding down about 3 positions. We currently have several positions open in the steering committee. And so if you are interested in joining us, we do Zoom meetings the Friday before, the Tuesday before this general meeting. Thank you.
I would like to say hi to our 10 people on Facebook Live right now. Why don't you actually hear?
Can you ask if they vote? And if you want, that you can get their response.
Okay.
That would be nice. I believe that that's it. We're going to take a short break, let people mellow out, ask any questions of the steering committee members that they have. And we'll be back here in 10 minutes, 7:30. Will that give you enough time? Excellent.
Perfect.
I hope so. Thank you very much.
You're live right now.
Thanks.
I don't have a pen.
I just wanted to make sure.
I don't either.
I know, so how am I gonna?
How you doing?
I know, you're gonna email and it's just really wonderful. How we should have tables, little flyers.
Does anybody have a pen?
I do.
Oh my God. I mean, I like one, the
Yeah, that's October. Jim's in November. December is your potential party. And then January we come back to the
Yahoo, that's why. Do you have a Gmail? I hate mine, but I always use my Yahoo. But
Stomach surgery. Have you stayed active the last couple of years? thinking it's all aging.
Here, down in Spokes. Yeah, we probably just do sometimes we have one like
Somebody get back in. He's not the president. He's the coordinator. He doesn't like the word president.
It's fall now, you know, you're not supposed to wear shirts.
He does have shorts on.
Yes, I do.
I'm glad to see Leslie.
Things are going right. Yeah, it's already
That's about 800 miles more than
Good seeing you again.
800 miles more than
I might be able to do is,
You ever get that new car?
that's not going to work for me. I'm gonna try this.
We're about 100 miles away. Lots of support. Lots of people support. The other ones are out Yeah, when you only carry like 10 pounds. Wants to finish the 327 miles next July. We're going. Maybe. I heard something about it. I have to make plans.
Okay, we're ready. We're ready. We're ready to start. Well, this thing, if I turn it sideways, it shows up sideways on the computer. So I don't want people to have to watch it, you know, and I don't know how to get it to, I'm sure there's a way I can do it on here to straighten it out, but I haven't figured that out yet. So I'm gonna just, that way I can get you and the slide.
Welcome back to Solar Night tonight. Get ready to rumble! Thank you very much for coming back. I'm Mike, your MC, yet again. Nobody has kicked me out. It is currently time for Ken Lemieux to give his presentation. Is there anything else we should know about you? Or are you going to introduce yourself? Excellent. Thank you very much for returning, and thank you, Ken.
Is there anything about Sandy's?
No, I'll cover that at the end.
All right.
Is this car still on?
All right, I don't think I'm gonna use the microphone because I don't really want to walk around with the microphone in my hand, so I'm just gonna go ahead.
What?
I joined Solar. Leslie, hi. I joined Solar in 2008 and learned some backpacking skills and things like that from that point on. And went to Isle Royal in 2009, and I will say I was smitten, and really liked Isle Royal quite a bit. So this is a presentation, but yet I would like participation from the crowd as well. I don't want to just stand up here and lecture for half an hour. That would be no fun. So we'll start off with an easy question. How many of you have backpacked at Isle Royal? Woo! Okay, so I don't have to really explain what Isle Royal is. That's good. And who saw the presentation by Erin in May? Okay, so that was good because she gave some information about Isle Royal as well. She talked for about 2 minutes about MooseWatch, and that's what I took, or what I did this May. So I'll just kind of expound on that. And I was with a team of rookies. This was my first time doing that, so we'll get started here. So what is MooseWatch? MooseWatch, in essence, is where volunteers go to Isle Royal, and you go into the back country, and you find moose carcasses and do autopsies on them. And then you bring some of the parts back with you, so it's good fun. It's through Michigan Tech. It's right up my alley, backpacking and orienteering. Two things that I learned here at Solar. So Mike was my backpacking teacher back in, what was it, 1982 or something like that? No.
72, I think.
Yes, it's so backpacking and orienteering right up my alley. And they send out 4 expeditions a year. There's about 20 people on each expedition. The 2 that go out in May are out of Windigo, so that's on that end of the island. And the 2 that go in the rest of the year are out of Rock Harbor up that way. I chose May because anybody who does orienteering knows that it's easier to find stuff in the woods when there's no vegetation out. So Jeff can vouch for that. MooseWatch is 8 nights that you're on the island for. Some more details here. How to get on a MooseWatch. Watch the website. So if you go and you Google MooseWatch, you'll find the website and go ahead and bookmark that. In November or December, they start putting the dates out there for the next year. And at that point, then you fill out an application online and send that in. There's usually a waiting list, so you want to apply early, and you have to put together basically a backpacking resume or an outdoorsy resume type thing with your skills and whatnot. What they don't want is somebody who's been sitting on the couch for the last 10 years and said, hey, this MooseWatch sounds like a great idea. They don't want that. Then you send in a $450 donation, so yes, you're paying to do work. It's not the normal thing. Sign a waiver, and then the real cost. After that, then it's not just the $450, but then you got to sign up and pay for the ferry, a couple nights of hotel lodging. This one, because it went to Windigo, was from Grand Portage, Minnesota, so that's like a 14-hour drive from right there. So plenty of gas and food and whatnot. So I think it probably cost me around $1,300, maybe a little bit more than that. Previous, yep.
So on this waiver, insurance-wise, if you get hurt or sick or something like that, do they get you off the island back?
They will So we carry around GPSs that we would contact back every night, and if there was an emergency, you could contact them. But the ideal thing is to be able to get off the island yourself, or get back to Wendigo yourself. If they have to come, when I was there in May, it was a skeleton staff. They had just opened. There was winter lasted a little bit longer this year up there, as Mike can vouch for. So winter lasted a little bit longer. Washington Harbor, where Wendigo is, was frozen over until like 3 or 4 days before we got there. There was some doubt whether we'd even be able to go because it was frozen over. Then the wind shifted, all the ice broke up, and we were able to bring in the Ranger, the big ship, and unload stuff on that Thursday, and then we came over on Saturday. So it was this close to being still frozen over. But that's one of the big things they say is be able to self-rescue. So if you have to get out, you break your leg or something, your teammates are going to help get you back to Wendigo, and then you're going to have to. But yeah, that would be basically on you for your own insurance and whatnot type thing. About 3/4 of the volunteers are returning, so it's kind of people start doing it and they're like, wow, this is fun. I like to do this. And they keep coming back. There was one guy who, believe it or not, was on his 50th trip there, and he's younger than me. I think he inherited some money or something, and he's basically been retired since his mid-30s or something like that. So he comes and does all 4 of them every year, and he's been crazy about it. It's something. So the team assignments are done ahead of time. There's about 20 people on each of the expeditions. There's either 4, 5, or 6 people on each team. My team was a team of 5. You'll see pictures of that in just a minute. They've got tents available if you need to borrow a little bit of gear. We'll go over that in a minute here too. You need 7 days of food, and you have to carry that the whole time. I should mention that one of the teams, though, is kind of your older people who have done this a bunch of times, and so they're kind of not wanting to go out in the woods anymore so much. So they base camp out of Wendigo, and then they do day trips out to go to the moose carcasses that are close to Wendigo. So, yeah, 4 teams, 3 that go out in the field and 1 that kind of does the base camping. But yeah, you need about 12 pounds of food, and there's no resupply. In my case, my Excel spreadsheet said I had 21,000 calories of food. And was that enough? Well, it was kind of cold when I was there, and so when you're cold, your body generates, it's generating heat, so you're going through a lot of calories. I didn't think that was quite enough calories for me, but your mileage may vary. You need to be able to carry at least 40 pounds in your pack, possibly more. I will discuss that later. If I forget, somebody remind me, okay? On a normal backpacking trip, what happens is as the days go on, what happens?
It's lighter.
Your pack gets lighter. When you're stuffing bones into it, your pack gets heavier. So it's the opposite of your normal trip. By the end, you're like, man, I'm carrying a lot of stuff here. You need to have a day pack or an empty main pack, or empty out your main pack to take on the day hikes when you're going out looking for the moose bones. So you need to be able to carry your 10 essentials, and various things you pick up on the trail, moose parts basically. Good rain gear, very essential. They really beat that into your head when they're telling you about the application and things like that. You do not want to go out into the bushes there in a poncho. It will get torn into pieces. Afterwards, you get a chance to shower and whatnot, so you want to bring clean clothes, have basically a bag for afterwards. Maybe it's got some food on it on the boat and things like that, and shampoo, soap, towel, all that stuff. When we got there, the wells, they're not used for 6 months, so they get germs or whatever in them, and they have to put some chlorine in them. So over on the Wendigo side, we could not get potable water. So you get there, and they told us ahead of time, bring some extra water for on the ferry and for when you get there. And then when we came back off the trail, the wells still were not any good. So they're like, well, if you want water, you got to go get some more unfiltered out of the lake again. I've been filtering water for 8 days. Are you kidding? but that's how it is. It's Isle Royal, early in the season, you know? All right. So we're gonna go through kind of what happened day by day here on the trip. So that's the Voyager 2 that comes out of Grand Portage. And you can actually see on the back right there, somebody did a canoe trip that early in the season. So we weren't the only ones on the ferry. And yeah, I think that going in 35-degree water to do a canoe trip around Isle Royal, that takes some guts. That's not something I am interested in doing. So on day one, then when we got to the dock, it was kind of like a big reunion. There was a lot of people who knew one another from all these trips they've done before, and those who didn't know one another, you know, they made acquaintances and introductions and whatnot on the dock. And that was, I think it takes 2 hours, and it must have been 8 to 10 o'clock that we were out on the lake. And so 10 o'clock we got in there, and it was a nice day to start with. It was unseasonably warm. It was about 70 degrees, something like that. So we were thinking, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake, and we were wrong. Immediately thereafter, 50 yards, things got real quick. So 50 yards away from the dock, there was a dead moose. That moose died in March, so just a couple months before we got there. And it was a calf that was about 10 months old, so they figured out that it had been born the previous year. And who wants to take a guess what killed that moose?
Ticks.
Anybody else?
Starvation.
Chronic wasting.
Who said starvation? You win the prize. Good job. So this is Rolf Peterson, who's been the head of the project. He's 73 years old. He's been the head of the project since the 1970s. He's retired from Michigan Tech now, but he's still extremely involved in the project. And he's spent almost every summer since he was in his 20s on the island. He raised his kids on the island. His wife wrote a book about raising their kids, which I have right here. Her name's Candy or Carolyn. And Rolf also has a book, which this is an excellent book. So even if you're not interested in going on a MooseWatch, I highly suggest this. It's The Wolves of Isle Royal, A Broken Balance by Rolf Peterson. So really good book. So Rolf gave us kind of the shakedown as to what to do with the moose bones and whatnot. And this picture I want you to remember, okay? So this is what we would do all the time is break open a bone, a leg bone, and you would look at the marrow. And if the marrow has no fat on it, the moose starved to death. And that has no fat on it. So that poor moose, it starved to death. And with a little bit longer winter, just an extra week of winter can be the difference between life and death for a lot of those moose who are just living on the food that they stored in their body the last year, the last summer. So that's what a starving moose looks like right there. So then we went over to where the gear shed is, and Rolf was giving out instructions. That's his wife, Candy, next to him. And we were getting some group gear as well that we had to carry. We had white gas stoves. We had filters that we got, tarps, GPS units, stuff like that. Your usual things. And then by noon, we were on our way. So on the left there, this is our team. We were all rookies. I guess it's pretty rare for them to put a team of rookies together, but they decided for some reason that it would probably work. And it did. So on the left, we've got Mike. He's from Ohio. He was 40. And I think he works for NASA. And then Sophie, who's a college student at the University of Michigan, she was next. In the middle, we've got Clay. He's our team lead. That was his 7th expedition that he had led. You've got me and then Matt. And Matt had just graduated from U of M. He was a biology major, and his main reason for coming on this trip was to network, talk to other people who are kind of in the biology field and try and get a job. And he was successful. Went on a lot of interviews and whatnot, but he got a job with Michigan Tech. So good job, Matt. And off we went. By noon, we were hiking down the Greenstone. We were the first people on the Greenstone out of Windigo that year. And yeah, there was still lots of traces of winter. So I gotta say, being the only people on the island and not seeing anyone else out of our group for 5 days was really cool. You don't get that experience in the national park very much. So we headed, another show of hands. Who's stayed at Island Mine before? Campground. Okay, so a few people. So that's where we were heading from Wendigo. And you can see we're still wearing, t-shirts for the most part and whatnot. And Island Mine, as well as our next campground, which was Siskiwik Bay, both have fire areas, so you can have a fire, a campfire, which most of Isle Royal does not. So we had a fire most every night except when it rained. And what Mike is doing back in the background in the red shirt, he's got the GPS out, and every night we would have to send a message and say, hey, here's what we accomplished today, and we're good. And that would go to Rolf. Rolf would send back a message basically saying, okay, or he may just have further instructions, which he gave a few times for us. And then every night we would download the weather forecast. And it was pretty funny because a lot of the times the forecast would say, no chance of rain in the next 24 hours. And within 10 minutes, guess what would be happening? Yeah, it would rain. Just sprinkles. So that's day one. Day two, we're off. Now we're heading out for Siskiwik Bay, but we had a little bit of a delay because our team lead Clay had realized he forgot his rain jacket back at the gear shed. So he hiked that morning all the way back to Wendigo, met Candy on the trail, because we sent a message to her, and she had his rain jacket for him, so then he hiked back. So we had 12 miles in before we had to break camp and then head for Siskiwik Bay. You can see the water in the streams. It was, the snow had just melted. We had gotten major rain 2 days before, so it was quite, everything was raging with water at that time. So what might be an easy in the middle of the summer hop across those rocks was a little bit tricky, but not too bad. So that's I don't know how well you can see that, but that's a wolf print. We saw lots of wolf prints, lots of moose prints. Signs of those animals were everywhere, from the bushes being, all trimmed down to this tall, because that's what the moose eat them down to prints and scat and, the whole deal. So it was pretty cool.
So up to this point, are you staying on like the main trails?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're the first 2 days were basically travel days.
Okay.
I should mention that one of the other groups, the other two groups that were out in the field, one of them, Seth's group, I think they might have stayed only at Feldman Lake one night, and then the rest of the time they were out in the boonies. They had no bathrooms, they had no anything. We all obviously had to filter our water, but they were more hardcore than we were. And then there was another group that I think did half in the woods and half at campgrounds, and they still didn't stay at Feldman Lake. So this was our camp mascot. Yes, it was cold. All right, day 3. So you'll notice everybody's got a little bit warmer clothing on. Temperature dropped and would continue to drop. It was a trend. Just every day, instead of getting warmer, every day it got a little bit colder. And by the end of the week, I think every night was, except for the first night, I had a 20-degree bag, and I thought, man, I'm going to roast to death on this trip. I was wearing everything I had by the end of the trip. I was cold. So day 3 was great. That was our first day of actually, okay, we're set. We get to go look for moose now. Let's go. So off we go. And it was a nice day, as you can see, but I've got warmer clothes on than before. So when you're looking for moose remains, most of them are UTM coordinates in a GPS. So we've got a sheet that tells you where to look, and then you've got another sheet that shows the coordinates that you put into the GPS to go look for. So Mr. Jeff back there, he can tell you all about UTM coordinates, that's for sure. So we put those into the garment, and then whenever anybody in the group saw bones from a moose, you would yell out, "Bones!" And then everybody would kind of stop, and you start searching then and try and find all the bones that you could from that particular moose that died, and figure out also if it's a new one that had died, or if it's a PDF, which is a previously documented find. So usually you can tell a PDF because there's no skull, and it's missing a couple bones that were taken back, and it's got a broken leg bone because that's what we do. We check to see if it starved. The skull, incisors, mandible, and metatarsal, and sometimes the hooves, we take those with us. So the mandibles are the jaw bones, I should explain. The metatarsal is from here down on the knee. The incisors, the teeth. Anybody want to guess why we would want the incisors? Age is correct. Very good. So you can cut the incisors in half, and then you count the rings like a tree, and you can tell how old the moose was. You take the metatarsal, and you can measure how tall the moose was. So you can kind of tell the health of the moose based on that age, just on those little pieces of information, and then they can study other things as well. For example, the size of, with the skull, the size, yes?
Didn't mean to interrupt that, but are you going to using GPS to find previously documented?
No, so I meant to mention this, sorry. So say that we walk outside right now, there's a dead moose in the parking lot. You probably don't want to, well, in the city, it's a different story, but pretend we're all on Isle Royal right now, we find a dead moose that's died a few days ago. That moose stinks. It's got a lot of rotting flesh on it. It's got fur on it and whatnot. So what they do is they record where it is with the GPS coordinates, and then people come back to that 6 months or a year later when it's just a pile of bones like that. So you let Mother Nature do its job, and now you've got the bones just to work with.
So you're relying on basically the crowds, the people that are really hiking it to find these carcasses?
Yeah, that, and also some of the moose, they've got collars on, so when the moose drops dead, it's not moving anymore, and it sends a beacon saying, hey, I'm not moving, I'm dead. So then they know to go and get one. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more too. And then when you also, like I said earlier, the crack, I've got that on there. That's when you take one of the bones and you crack it in half to check how much, if there's any fat in there. So our first one that we got to, we gathered up all the parts, and there's 26 ribs in a moose carcass, and put all that together. We kind of did like a little biology class, and we put all the parts together, trying to basically reassemble the moose. It was kind of cool. So we learned a lot about the anatomy of the moose, that's for sure. I wish I had studied some more up on that before the trip, but hindsight's 2020, right? And we had these cards with us that were part of our kit, and on the first one right here, it says our team, and then the number of our of moose that we've had found. So that's our first one that we were doing an autopsy on. And there were certain parts of the moose that we needed to take pictures of. So we had one person on the team who was assigned to be the camera person. That was Sophie. So that was, yeah, the skull right there. First moose. And here's her sheet right here that was given to us at the beginning. It's got the targets that we're looking for. So down here in the Siskiwik Bay area, you can see a couple of red circles, and those are all the moose that were known in that area. Now, they want you hiking off trail as much as possible as well, because when you go hiking off trail, you're more likely to find a dead moose than if you're staying on the trail. So they're always reporting in, how much time did you spend off trail? What was your mileage on trail? What was your mileage off trail? So they want you to go off trail. Any questions about that? That's all in UTM coordinates, too.
That all moves from 1 year that died?
Yeah.
Or that multiple years?
No, that's just in the last year.
Seems like a lot.
It is a lot.
How many are on an average year?
I've got a slide towards the end, and right now they estimate the population to be around 1350. So.
And how many wolves?
28. That's on that slide as well.
So, was the primary cause for the amount here, was it starvation? Was it wolves? I mean, I'm sure it's a combination, I'm just looking at like percentage.
Yeah, it's a combination, but mostly it's starvation. You've got all these moose, and in recent years, anybody who's been following Isle Royal knows that they transplanted some moose, or I'm sorry, not some moose. some wolves to the island recently because the moose population was going way up and the wolf population was down to 2. So they brought some in, and they're bringing the population down because it was over 2,500 recently. I think it was like 2,800, something like that. So you couldn't hardly walk anywhere without seeing a moose, and they were eating everything. And what happens is it goes in cycles. So you've got the moose population going up like this, and then what would happen is the wolf population would follow it going up, and then you'd have a big catastrophic winter, and the moose population goes whoosh, and then a couple of years later the moose or the wolf population would go whoosh, because the wolves now don't have enough to eat. So everything, it's the yin and yang of those two. They just they go together. So those were all, and the ones on the east side of the island are ones that people would have gone looking for on the other 2 expeditions later in the year.
So the wolf historically won't just hit and knock off a moose. I mean, they're picking off the ones that are going to die anyways.
Yep, they go after the weak ones.
Right.
Yep, that's what they're going after, the weak ones. And like this time of year, what is it now? It's the end of September. This is the tougher time of year right now for your wolves, because the wolves, it hasn't hit winter up there yet. When winter comes around, that's your prime time to be a wolf, because now you've got the moose, who is 800 pounds and has legs as tall as me or so, and the moose has to go through the snow, and say the snow is 6 feet deep, maybe it's 8 feet deep, whatever. So if you're a big old moose and you're trying to get through the snow, that's not easy to do. But if you're a wolf, you're a lot lighter than that. You can go over the top of the snow, and you can get to the wolf, or you can get to the moose rather, and you can kill the moose. So wolves are very smart. They know which moose are weak and which ones they should go after. They see a very strong bull moose, they're like, I don't want to go get kicked in the head again. I'm going to leave that one alone. And when they find a dead dead wolf on the island, and they do an autopsy on it, almost invariably, it will have several spots where it had fractured bones, ribs, skull, thing like that. It's not easy being a wolf on Isle Royal. You get kicked around a lot by these big old moose. And, sometimes that's what kills the wolf.
So this is the sheriff's moose?
What's that?
This type of moose, is it the sheriff's moose?
The sheriff's?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
I mean, that's the type of moose. There's different types of them.
They have found that the moose on Isle Royal, by measuring the skulls, that over the last 40 years they've decreased in size by 16%. And they attribute that to the moose are kind of locked in. Well, they're not kind of locked in, they are locked in by Lake Superior. So they don't have as much range to be able to get food and things like that. Whereas your moose that are like in the Upper Peninsula or in Minnesota or Ontario or whatever, they can roam all over the place and they're not restricted on how much food they can get. Kind of restricted on Isle Royal as to how much food they can get to. All right, so every time we filled out an autopsy, we had to fill out an autopsy, or this is the autopsy sheet. So you've got things listed on there like where was the moose when it died, what kind of area was it in, which often it was in a cedar swamp. We got sick of, it was kind of like a joke after, towards the end, we were like, okay, what was it? Cedar swamp. And then we would count how many of the different bones. Like I said, there's 26 ribs and all kinds of other bones in there. And if there was a lot of arthritis, you would mark that down. Sometimes you would bring back bones that had arthritis on them, things like that. So we had to fill one of those out. And this is the kill kit. It's called a kill kit, but I think it should be called the autopsy kit because moose is already dead. And number 5, my wife asked about, she said, why would you have a neon vest in there? So whenever we would find moose remains, we'd take this neon vest, throw it up in the biggest tree that was around, so that's hanging up there. And now when we're spread out, walking around the woods here, looking for the bones, we can look up at that tree and say, oh, there's where everybody is. And we also did a lot of Marco Polo, so we'd yell back and forth so as not to get lost. There were a few stories about people who got lost, and it took them several hours to find them in the past, so we didn't want to be one of them. And those were all that's basically the contents to our kit that we started off with. And with all those things, we were able to do our job. All right, so we've got our very first moose here all packaged up, ready to carry out. We've got the skull in here, we've got the mandibles in there, and we've got that leg bone in there. So we take some twine, wrap it up, and then we can carry it. And that's what we would hook up to the back of your pack, which is a pretty cool look, I think, really.
How much does that weigh approximately?
I was saving that for another slide, but I'll go ahead. Who wants to guess what a cow moose weighs, the skull? Come on, throw it on.
5 pounds.
8 pounds.
7.
10 pounds.
8 pounds. I thought I heard an 8. Maybe I heard 8. Yes, Jeff McBlues. What do you think a bull moose weighs? And it's more than a female moose.
12.
Yeah.
13.
Somebody said 12? Did I hear 12? Gone, sold. Yes, 12 pounds. And then the miscellaneous other bones that you add to it, the mandibles and the leg bone, is another 4 pounds. So for each moose that's a male that you're carrying around, a bull moose, you're looking at a good, 16 pounds when you add all that up. So yeah, it starts getting heavy pretty quick. You're adding this stuff to your pack, you're like, woo! Did I sign up for it? All right, so that first day we just did 2, and we kind of took our time because we were learning that day. Team of rookies, like I said, and our team leader Clay was teaching us. So as we're walking back down the Feldman Lake Trail, back you can see there's 3 of us in that picture that I took, and Matt is carrying one because he doesn't have a regular pack on. He just took a little sack for his pack that day, and Sophie's got the other one on her back, the skull. So as we went, then Matt and I would trade back and forth. I would carry it for a couple miles, and he would carry it, because I'll tell you what, that was heavy. All right, day 4. So day 4 was interesting. We started off at our campground there at Siskowit Bay, and our first target was about 1.1 miles as the crow flies away. And we decided we're not taking any trail to get there. We're going straight at it, straight through the woods. And then we were maybe a quarter mile to a half mile from our campsite, and Mike yelled out, "Bones!" And we all stopped because we were nowhere near yet to our GPS location. So this was one that had died and nobody had seen it before, so we got to record that. And that's much more fun than finding one that's with a GPS unit, because it's like, wow, this is one we found all on our own. This is cool. So we did an autopsy right there and took all the data down. This was day 4. It was not too bad. The weather it was getting colder, but we had 6 targets for that. Well, no, we had 3 or 4 targets that day, but this would be our big day. This was our biggest day. We ended up only hiking 5 miles that day, but got a lot done. So this is our second one we got to, and that's an intact rib cage. I actually found that one using the GPS, and I saw it from like 50 yards away. And you can imagine the vegetation that's just coming up right here. This is why I really like this picture that I took. If you would wait, say a month later, you wouldn't be able to see that. It would be covered. I've been to Isle Royal, and you go off trail in the middle of the summer, you're not going to see moose bones. You can't even see your feet. The vegetation's so thick.
So we have a new neon vest for every moose, for every find.
No, just for one. We just have one neon vest. We take it down, back up.
Oh, okay.
We put it up there so that we all know where we're going, and we can all gather back up if we're wandering around the woods. These pictures don't really do justice to how quickly you can get lost in these woods, even when there's not much vegetation on the trees. All right, so then I was teaching Sophie how to use the garment, and we were walking along a ridge, and all of a sudden it got real stinky, and we found a baby that had been killed. And so I don't know, we don't know, was this born, was it a stillborn when it was born, or did the wolves get it a couple days after? Like I said, the wolves are going after the easy kills here, so we don't know. But we nicknamed this one Junior, So poor old Junior, we had to lop his head off and his leg off and put him in a bag and take him with us. And Junior stunk bad. We double bagged Junior, but his stench still got through. Powerful little guy, I'll tell you that. Had a bright future until the wolf came along. All right. So on day 4, this is on to day 5 here. Day 4, we ended up doing 6 autopsies that day. It was a huge day. It was great. 6 autopsies in 5 miles. So that was pretty cool.
And so you're carrying all those skulls back?
You're right about that. Yep. And Siskiwik Bay, which is where we were camped at, that's a good 12 miles from Wendigo. So we're like, oh wait, this is not going to be, but they've got a surprise coming up for that. Okay, so the 2 we went to on this day, and this day the temperature did not get above about 39 degrees. It was cold. And we knew that on our map there were 2 moose that were in a swamp. So they do a winter study where they fly around. Who's heard of the winter study at Isle Royal? Okay, good amount of people. So they fly around and they try and estimate how many moose, how many wolves are on the island. And then they'll also, if they say a dead moose, they'll try and spot it with the GPS. So imagine you're flying in a plane and you're trying to hit the GPS button as you fly over a moose carcass. So you're clicking on that and you hope you got it right, but maybe you didn't. Maybe it's off by 100 yards. So they told us there's 2 moose, you need to get them. They're in a swamp. We're not sure if the coordinates are right. Good luck. They're like, this is gonna suck. Fortunately for these, the 2 that we went to, they were pretty right on with the coordinates. So I gotta say, Rolf, when he was up in the plane and he hit the button, he did a good job. This moose though, it was like 15, 20 yards off the trail, and it was still too ripe to take with us. So had a lot of meat still on it, had a lot of stench on it, a lot of fur. You can see like the gut pile basically here and all that right there, and some fur and whatnot. So our team leader is cutting the incisors off right there. He's using the saw, and that's the skull. That's the head right there. So lots of fur still on it. So we took the incisors off. And the reason you would want to take the incisors out of something like this is that the incisors just fall out of when everything starts deteriorating. The incisors are very important for determining the age, like we discussed earlier. But when those fall out and they go into the dirt, or in this case, into the swamp, they're hard to find. So we took those and said somebody else can come back in the future and get the other parts. So that was moose number 1 for that day. And then this is moose number 2, and you can see the incisors real well in that picture right there. So that one was not quite as gross as the first one, but it was still a little gross. But we packaged that one up and took all the parts with us that we needed. And right there, I am cutting the knee off, or cutting a leg off of the moose, and you can see the hoofs right there. I'm using the saw, cutting off the leg at the knee, and just taking the bottom part because that's all we needed for it. And man, we all got wet that day. All right. So somebody asked about carrying all that back. So we got a magical message from the boss man, from Rolf, and he said, "Here's some coordinates. Go stuff all your stuff in a tree, and we'll come back by boat and get this later, so you don't have to carry all this stuff back all the way to Window." We're like, yes. And you can tell the ones that are male skulls in here, this one and this one, they're much bigger than the female skulls. So we made up our little Christmas tree here. It would have been interesting had somebody else come just stumbling through the woods and seen us. They would have been freaked out. I think up at the very top is that one that was in the swamp. I think that's that one.
Okay, Ken, any evidence of antlers?
Well, they typically drop their antlers early in the winter, and then they die later in the winter. So we did not. We did find the occasional shed, as they call them, just laying in, but none of the ones. They say that 1 out of 30 male ones that you'll find, male skulls, still have the antlers on it there. And when you find that, it's heavy. So we're lucky, I suppose, that we didn't find one. So anyhow, we put all our bones in the tree and left it for them to come get by boat. All right, day 6. We're heading back to Island Mine, which is 5 miles away. Like I said, these creeks in the middle of summer probably aren't flowing quite to the degree they are at this time. And even crossing something little like that, which we found a log and threw across there to go across, you got to be careful, because if you fall in there and that water's 35 degrees, something like that, it's not going to be pleasant. All right, so we made it back to Island Mine, and this was my big find day, so I was quite excited. We were heading out to some coordinates to the east of us along Red Oak Ridge, and we were cutting through a swamp, and I found some bones, and Clay said, no, this has got to be a PDF. This has got to be one from before. No way could this be that close to the campground. And then a minute later, Matt found the skull in the water, said, oh, I found the skull. So we did the autopsy, and that was our 11th moose, as the numbers show. And see all the fat in there? That means that moose did not starve to death. So it was one of the leg bones that we came across was broken right in half previously. So we don't know what broke that. Was it maybe a wolf chewing on it later? It didn't have tooth marks on it, so not sure. Did the wolf or did the moose somehow break its leg and that's how it died in the swamp? Don't know. But it was very interesting. So yeah, it did not starve to death. We knew that much. And that's our 11th autopsy. All right, day 7. It rained heavily that night before. And unfortunately, I put my boots and my backpack a little too close to the edge of my tent, and I didn't realize how hard it was going to rain, and it splashed all over them. So my boots were wet again. Yay! And this, I swear to God, my boots they smelled like that. They smelled worse than some of the moves. It was a funny day to start off with. Our team lead, we had our goal for that day was to get to this moose that was east of Lake DeSoar. So if you look at the map of Isle Royal, Island Mine and where we were going is pretty far apart. So it was about 9 miles we had to go to get to this moose, and then we had to come back. What had happened with this moose was it was a high priority target, and the reason being that the year before it had a collar on it and it died. So they had good history on what this moose had done, where it had gone on Isle Royal for the previous year or whatever it was. And Sarah Hoy, who's one of the leaders of the program, she had gone and hiked out when that moose was freshly dead, took the collar off it, and then said, we'll be back to those bones some other day. So now that day has come, and we're going to go get it. So off we go. Now it's a nice, beautiful day. It started off foggy, and we weren't sure where the weather was going with it. And you can see right there the vest in the tree. And Matt is back in the background, and he would seem to do this all the time. He was changing his socks because he just could not get his feet wet or dry either. If you go to Isle Royal and you find a bunch of moose bones and they're all stacked together, that's not how the moose died. That's how the researchers stacked them up when they were counting them. So we stacked it up. At this point, because we didn't have our team lead with us, we left him in camp because he was not going to be able to do this kind of mileage. Left him in camp, and it was kind of very fortunate when we got to this moose because it was 2 o'clock was our turnaround time, but we went past that. And when we got to it, all the bones were within like a 10-yard radius. It was really lucky because there were some of the moose remains that we found. They were so scattered that you couldn't even find most of the parts, you know. So we were fortunate. We were at that one. That was the shortest autopsy of the week. All right, day 8. We're heading back to Wendigo, and it's pretty cool. Anybody who's been backpacking, I'm sure that when you're filthy and gross and you smell and everything, and you're walking past the people who just got off the ferry and are all smelling nice and they've got perfume on and stuff like that, and you're like, how you doing? So it's even much cooler when you've got a moose strapped to your back. Makes for good conversations. So,
Ken, who was coming on the island? The next group of moose watchers or
actual hikers.
visitors?
Yeah. That picture that from the day we went in the swamp, that was the first time we saw anybody else on the island that week. So it was day 5, and that was the first time we saw somebody. We had actually been on the ferry with them coming over, and that guy was on his 40th trip to Isle Royale with his girlfriend, who was on her first trip. So, yep, we're heading back into Wendigo. I think, 7 miles to hike back. All right, so we get back here. I promised you a story about Seth, did I not? Okay, so Seth, big, strong guy. He was the team lead for one of the other teams. He carried this sucker back. His pack, they said, was over 80 pounds by the time he got back. Like 80 pounds. Holy cow. His team, we ended up doing 12 autopsies. His team did 23. So the all-time record is 27 in one expedition. So they came pretty close. So he carried that back. Not only did he carry 80 pounds back, he did it in Crocs. So the story is that they were going through a swamp and he had brought waders with him. So he took his boots off, tied them to his pack, put his waders on, and then when they got done for the day and they were back at camp, went to put his boots on, Lefty is gone. So his left boot. So they went back and they looked for it, but it was not to be found. So he lost the boot somewhere in the swamps of Isle Royale. So he carried 80 pounds on his back in Crocs and spent half the week going through the woods in the crazy terrain in Crocs. So Seth is one tough dude. So then that night, oh, and by the way, on that last day, they don't want you getting back there really before noon because they're setting things up and whatnot. And they had, it was kind of funny because you got back and they had cases of beer and they're like, well, you can't have any water, but we got beer. So there's water in the beer. Yeah, it was pretty funny. That night, we had dinner, and they cooked the dinner for all 20-something of us. And I was pretty impressed because the dinner was very good. I mean, a lot of things taste better when you've been on the trail for 8 days. But if you can imagine cooking just for 20 people, even when you have access to Kroger down the street, is difficult to do. But this is, on the island, they get food shipments once a week. And they have to put down everything they want real detailed on the grocery list and send that in ahead of time before the food's sent out. So we had a huge dinner. Everybody ate till they were stuffed. It was wonderful. And I'm like, wow, this is quite a accomplishment just to be that organized to be able to cook for this many people, I thought. And then when we were done eating, they literally gave us the song and dance. So some of the team leaders had songs and dances. It was kind of like being in camp as a kid. I never actually went to camp as a kid, but that's what I always imagined it would be like. And that's John Busatich, who's the leader of the organization now. Since Rolf is retired, he's the main guy right now, and he's kind of the public face of it right now, and he's also a professor at Michigan Tech. So I got to talk one-on-one with him for about 15, 20 minutes, and he was flying around the island while we were there, and the moose with the GPS collars on them, he told me that they're kind of like Fitbits. They record all their activities and whatnot, so when they're flying around and they're able to lock on to a moose, he said that they upload the information from them. So say that it's got like 4,000 files on it, and you only get 1,000 files on the first pass before you loop too far out and the connection's broke. It doesn't reset back to 0. Then when you reestablish connection, it starts with number 1001 and continues up. So they're able to do that and get information off the moose. And they're also able to, for a moose that's had the collar on for a long time, he said they can press a button and it fires a charge in the collar that causes the pin to pop out and the collar to just fall off, which has to scare the hell out of the moose, I would imagine. Like, I've had this thing on for a year and I'm like, what happened? And that's me with Rolf Peterson. it was pretty cool because I got a similar garment at home to the one that I was using on the trail. And so I showed him some tricks with it that he didn't know how to do, and he was very appreciative.
Why would they want the color?
Say that they knew like the battery was dying on it or something like that, and it was an old collar, so that they can put new batteries in it, type thing.
So they go out and pick up the cow?
Yes. Yep. All right, and so that's everybody who took part in that year, or this first one. It's too bad Chris Ann's not here because she took a picture at Wendigo later, and everything is all green in the background. This was before it greened out, and even the group that came after us, the picture that they took 10 days later, it was much greener in the background than what we had. Like you couldn't even see that building behind in other people's pictures that I've seen. They put out an email with the summaries of all of them. So our group ended up getting 51 autopsies, which was by far the most. When I say our group, the whole expedition. Our team had 12. Seth's team had 23, 27 being the all-time high, and then the other groups had less. So it was pretty productive time. Then, 3 months later, I went back to Isle Royale and hiked solo, and I was able to go over to the research cabin that Rolf lives in during the summer. Rolf and his wife, and I got to see all these bones on display. You've probably seen pictures of these before. Anybody who's been to Isle Royale has probably seen some pictures of this cabin and whatnot. So it was pretty cool. If you're there in the summer, Rolf and his wife put on presentations at Daisy Farm at 8 o'clock on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So there they are, the cabin. This is the moose, the winter study results. Basically, the wolf population went up, the moose population went down. Calves are at their lowest level in a while, and that's probably because the moose are outside the wolves that are at a higher level. And part of the population drop is attributed to wolf kills, but most of it is because the moose are starving, and the ticks are a problem because of the warmer summers. The ticks get bigger, and the ticks just do more damage, things like that. I actually ran into somebody who was there on my second trip, who said, "Hey, I saw a moose, and I think it must have got bit in the back end by a wolf. It was all bloody. It had blood marks on the back. It had to be a wolf." That's actually when they go in the water, the leeches attach to them, and then when they come out of the water, they're trying to get these leeches off of them, and they start bleeding, and they look like they've been bit by a moose or by a wolf. So, if you see a moose on Isle Royale that looks like it got bit in the back end, it probably was not bit in the back end.
I don't know, but I think that the person who gave the talk on the last Isle Royale stuff with the moose said something like thousands of ticks.
Yes.
On the moose.
Yeah, in Rolf's book, he talks about there was one study done in Minnesota, and something like up to 100,000 ticks could possibly be on a moose at a time, which is just disgusting.
Yeah, when I was up there one spring, the naturalist was explaining that the ticks actually, they've had wolves or moose die of hypothermia because they've shed so much of their fur against trees trying to get rid of the ticks.
Yeah, I've heard that too. All right, so before I open it up, I don't know if anybody's have any questions left. I'll just give you some of the questions that I was asked or had seen after and before the trip. So the first question was, how do you know you'll get along with your teammates? You're going to be out there for 8 nights, 9 days. How do you know you're going to have fun with them? But it's kind of like a lot of backpacking trips. You don't always know your teammates real well. You're not going with the same people all the time. But you do know they all have the same interests, and you're all kind of pulling in the same direction or pushing in the same direction. So, I thought it was worth a gamble, and it turned out to be good. We all got along fairly well. Everybody's got their own personality quirks that sometimes bug you and sometimes bug you more when you're tired and hungry. But overall, it worked out. Would you do it again? That was a question I was being asked before we even got off the trail. I'm tired. I'm cold. I'm achy. Don't ask me this for another 24 hours. And I've told some others that it was kind of, at the time, some of it was type 2 fun, where you're, at the time, yeah, you're like, man, I'm getting beat up here, but a week later, you're no longer tired, you're no longer achy, you're no longer cold, you're no longer hungry, and you're like, man, that was a lot of fun. I don't remember some of that stuff. How many moose did you count? We counted 12, we did 12 autopsies. How many live moose did we see? We only saw one. Did you see any wolves? No, and that's pretty common. Most people don't see any wolves. These last 5 questions are all from people on Facebook, and you have to wonder about the intelligence of some of these questions. But why don't the DNR do something about the moose dying? Does the DNR plant food plots for the moose? Who can answer either one of those questions? No. The DNR do not work in national parks. DNR is state parks. This is a national park. So anything that's got a DNR question immediately wrote it.
Are these your friends then?
No, no. This is on the public MooseWatch website. Do you plant trees for the moose seed? No, we don't. Why don't they allow the hunting of the moose? And I think we discussed that because the hunters take out the strongest of the moose, the wolves take out the weakest of the wolves. The wolves actually make the moose population stronger as a whole, whereas a hunter is going to make it weaker. I'm not against hunting or anything, but that's kind of why they don't allow hunting. Can the moose be removed to have a better life somewhere else? They actually tried that once. They took 70 moose off the island and transplanted them somewhere else. But when you've got 2,000 moose on an island, 70 is not going to make a dent. So, all right, that's the end of my slides. Does anybody have any more questions or anything they'd like to comment on?
Just curious, did you hear any wolves? They say you didn't see any. Did you hear them at night?
I heard them. So I heard them a little bit on this trip, but on my second trip, so I spent a total of 16 days on the island this year. On my second trip, they were so freaking close to my tent when they were howling. I mean, everybody in the campground, this was at Hatchet Lake, was woken up. We were all like, that next morning, holy crap, did you hear that? It was like a whole pack of them were just on the edge of our campground. I swear to God, it was so loud. It was crazy. I was right promptly at 2 in the morning. Anybody else?
Ken, did they have any because the winter was extended this year?
Mm-hmm.
That should cut down on the ticks. Were they predicting that, or?
A lot of that's got to do with how warm it gets in the summer, but that will help some with the ticks, yes. So, but overall, the rising temperatures there on Isle Royale are not doing the moose any favors with the food and with the ticks and all that. So.
I guess I'm still a little confused. I know you had your first 2 days getting back there when you started out, but then those 5 sound like there were 5 autopsy days and hunt days. Were you at a different camp, designated camp area each night, or
so we spent the first night at Island Mine, which I brought the map along. So Island Mine is up here. So we went from Wendigo to there. I don't know if anybody can see what I'm holding for that. So we spent the first night there, and that was just kind of like a transit night. And then we went down to Siskiyou Bay and spent 4 nights there. And then we went back up to Island Mine for 2 nights. One of the nights being that was the day we did the long hike out to here and got that moose that had the collar on it, and then hiked all the way back, which was like, I don't know, 17 or 18 miles or whatever it was. So that's what we did. But there were other people. We were the furthest out, but since our campground was right on the water, we were able to stuff all those moose parts into a tree and have them come back and get them later. But there was a lot of 2 of the other groups that had gone further out. They were in the Spelman Lake area, kind of, and by the swamp. This is somewhere around where Seth lost his boot.
So there are some nights where you're not carrying all your gear, your tent, all your supplies every day. It sounds like there's some.
Yeah, so at the beginning, we basically had 2 transit days in a row, and then, I stayed in my tent the whole time. Everybody else at Siskiyou Bay stayed in shelters for a little while, for 4 days, and then we hiked packed up our stuff and went back to Island Mine to go get those high priority ones. So.
Where are these showers then?
I can't tell you that secret. So that was basically in the Ranger area. So, and at that time, the water was still not good to drink, so you could shower in it, but don't drink it.
But there are showers for any hikers. You can.
Yeah, you can.
They're $6 for 5 minutes, but
And they're not open before Memorial Day.
Unless you're on a trip like this.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention too, not only did they make an amazing dinner for us that night, 8 o'clock the next morning, they had an amazing breakfast for us. So kudos to the people who were manning the kitchen because that was something.
Ken, with all that nice, smelly, rotting meat, did you have a problem with varmints at all? Or? No?
Nope.
Was that disgusting?
Yeah, so like with Junior, we stuffed him and, we kept him nearby in our campground, but there was no animals that came to get him. And eventually, I think the third layer of garbage bags kind of shut down the smell from Junior a little bit, but, yes.
Will wolves eat the ones that starve, or will they only eat the ones they kill?
No, they're not picky about a piece of meat, so they'll come get. So this time of year, and in August and whatnot, the wolves up on Isle Royal during the summertime, they're not killing wolves, or they're not killing moose generally. They're killing beavers and they're killing rabbits, hares, whatever, animals like that. Sometimes squirrels, chipmunks even. Well, there's no chipmunks on the island, but squirrels. So they're going after the things like that. But a moose has got so much more food in it when they can get a moose. But they generally don't go after the moose unless it's a calf or a real old one during the summertime. So that's when they're loading up on beaver and whatnot. And winter's when they go after the wolves or after the moose.
So, I'm sorry, did you plan on doing it again?
I would definitely do it again, but I've got this to work right away. Probably should have done that.
I'll help you drive there. Go down the road.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. I think he's probably going to have some stuff if you want to look at the maps over here, at least for a little bit. We've got about 20 minutes before we have to leave. Some of us will be going to Sandy's by the beach.